And you know what? If there's one thing we know, it's race cars. And so Aaron, well, he better have his act together because he's not just going to...
Behind the roar of Oklahoma engines and the glow of streetlights lies a side of AZN that few truly know. What happens when raw talent collides with heartbreak, the kind of heartbreak that lingers long after the world stops watching? His story isn't just about racing, it's about survival. It's about a kid who lost everything, yet still found a way to build a legacy that millions now admire. From early family tragedy to the friendships that carried him forward, AZN's journey takes twists most fans never expected. This isn't just a story about winners' circles or checkered flags. It's about the weight behind the wheel. It's about the loss he hides behind humor. It's about the drive that comes from pain. Get ready to uncover the heartbreak, the hope, and the humanity behind the man the world calls AZN, but who was once just Jeff Bonnet, a boy trying to hold his world together. Before he was AZN, before TV fame, before Street Outlaws ever existed, Jeff Bonnet was simply a boy growing up in Oklahoma City, a place where racing is more than a pastime, it's a heartbeat woven into the culture. From a young age, Jeff was fascinated by cars, engines, and anything that ran on gasoline. But what people don't often talk about is the darkness that shaped him long before the cameras arrived. Jeff was still a teenager when tragedy hit. His mother passed away after a battle with cancer, leaving a wound no engine could drown out. Losing her so young shattered the sense of security every kid deserves. Before Jeff and his sister Brenda could catch their breath, heartbreak struck again. In 2001, Jeff's father, Dennis Bonnet, a disciplined Vietnam War veteran and Jeff's first mentor, died from a heart condition. Just like that. Jeff was an orphan. Dennis was more than a father. He was the man who taught Jeff how to hold a wrench, how to fix a carburetor, how to push beyond fear. He was the one who ignited Jeff's obsession with mechanics, an obsession that would eventually define AZN. When Dennis died, Jeff didn't just lose a parent. He lost the person who believed in him the most. Those early losses forced Jeff to face adulthood far sooner than most. But they also planted the seeds of something powerful, a drive fueled by grief but guided by purpose. And inside that pain, something was forming, a determination that would someday define a legend. Jeff's first true step into the world of racing came in the form of a beat-up 1964 Chevy Nova 2. The car wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast. It wasn't even reliable. But to Jeff, it was priceless. His father had loaned him the money for it under one condition: pay me back. That small promise, between a father and son, became a lifelong lesson about responsibility and earning your way. Broke and determined, Jeff painted house numbers on curbs to earn money to pay his dad back. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't exciting. But it taught him hustle. Every weekend, Jeff and Dennis spent hours under the hood of that Nova. To outsiders, it was mechanical work. To Jeff, it was a second language, a way to spend time with the dad he adored. After the Nova, Jeff took a risk. He bought a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle, a car nobody would consider worthy of street racing. But Jeff wasn't like everybody else. He transformed that little Volkswagen into a machine with personality, grit, and unexpected bite. Soon, it earned its iconic nickname, the Dung Beetle. The Beetle didn't dominate every race. Sometimes it shocked people. Sometimes it failed spectacularly. But it represented who Jeff was becoming, an underdog who refused to quit. He learned the harsh reality of street racing: you win some. You lose more. But what matters is showing up again. And that persistence slowly built his reputation across the Oklahoma streets. Some partnerships in life feel destined. Jeff meeting Sean "Farm Truck" Whitley was one of them. They didn't start out as best friends. At first, they were rivals, two racers with opposite styles and different philosophies. Farm Truck was older, wiser, and commanded respect with his monstrous 1970 Chevy C10. Jeff was younger, scrappier, and showed up in a Volkswagen Beetle. But something clicked. Farm Truck became the steady hand Jeff needed. Jeff became the spark of energy Farm Truck didn't know he was missing. Fans often say Farm Truck became the father figure Jeff lost too soon. And in many quiet ways, he did. Their banter, their chemistry, their mismatched personalities created one of the strongest duos in street racing culture. While others focused only on speed and power, Jeff and Farm Truck focused on fun, creativity, and authenticity. Their relationship wasn't just a partnership. It was brotherhood. A bond built on trust, humor, and the shared love of the street racing world. Together, they were unstoppable, not because they won every race, but because they represented what the sport was truly about: heart, grit, family. When Street Outlaws premiered in 2013, the racing world changed forever. Suddenly, the underground culture of Oklahoma City was being broadcast to millions. And in that spotlight stood Jeff, now known simply as AZN. Farm Truck and AZN quickly became fan favorites. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the flashiest. But they were the most genuine. Their humor, their creativity, and their chemistry made them unforgettable. Farm Truck's big block C10 brought raw power. AZN's quirky dung beetle brought heart and originality. While other racers poured hundreds of thousands into horsepower, Jeff built identity and charm. His smack talk, his wild ideas, and his fearless attitude made him a standout personality. But the rise wasn't easy. Jeff lost more races than he won. He got overshadowed by bigger builds. He faced criticism from fans who didn't understand his style. Yet AZN kept pushing. Every loss reminded him why he raced: for the adrenaline, for the community, and for the father he still carried in his heart. Over time, AZN and Farm Truck became pillars of the 405 race team, a duo fans couldn't imagine the show without. They proved that racing wasn't just about finishes. It was about soul. The fame, the cameras, and the competition brought challenges no one saw coming. As Street Outlaws became more intense, the culture shifted. More money. More power. More pressure. Racers built 3,000 horsepower monsters. Pro mod cars became the standard. And slowly, AZN and Farm Truck style didn't fit the mold producers wanted. They weren't invited to every race. Their cars weren't always competitive. They started to feel separated from the world they helped build. For Jeff, this hit hard. Racing wasn't a hobby, it was a tribute to the parents he lost. Being pushed aside hurt deeper than fans realized. Instead of giving up, Jeff and Farm Truck took a bold risk. They created their own series, Street Outlaws, Farm Truck and AZN. A show built on heart, humor, and creativity, not cutthroat racing. Fans loved seeing behind-the-scenes builds, crazy projects, and the camaraderie that defined their bond. But the spin-off faced challenges: lower promotion, fewer racing segments, and different expectations. Eventually, they returned to the main Street Outlaws scene, ready to face the competition once again. Through every setback, one constant remained: the dung beetle. The little beetle became a symbol of Jeff's resilience. A reminder that he never needed the biggest engine to stand out. Just courage and character. And even in their toughest moments, Jeff and Farm Truck stuck together, proving that true partnership survives every twist in the road. AZN's legacy goes far beyond the races he won or lost. His impact lies in the authenticity he brought to a world often overshadowed by ego. He showed fans that racing isn't only about horsepower, it's about heart. It's about the relationships forged in garages, on late-night streets, and under the glare of TV lights. The Dung Beetle remains one of the most iconic cars in Street Outlaws history, an underdog machine that reflects AZN's spirit: unconventional, surprising, and full of life. His bond with Farm Truck continues to define his story. They survived industry changes, criticism, injuries, and personal challenges, yet they remain unbreakable. Jeff keeps his personal life private, but those close to him know he values loyalty and friendship more than any trophy. Even after the accident in Australia at Summernats, Jeff returned with the same determination, proving once again that resilience is woven into who he is. What comes next for AZN? No one truly knows. But fans believe, without doubt, that whatever he builds next, whatever road he takes, it will carry that unmistakable blend of passion, humor, and heart that defines him. AZN's journey isn't just the story of a racer. It's the story of a survivor. A boy who lost everything but found hope behind the wheel. A man who turned tragedy into fuel. A legend who proved you don't need the fastest car to make the biggest impact. If you enjoyed uncovering the life of AZN, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from Street Outlaws. And before you go, don't slow down now. Keep the momentum rolling by watching the next video on your screen. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Stay fast. And stay tuned. For all the fame, laughs, and wild road adventures, AZN was living through a quieter war, one most viewers never noticed. Behind the cameras, behind the jokes, behind the cool confidence he carried on every episode, there were moments of exhaustion, pressure, and fear that he never showed. Because being on Street Outlaws wasn't just racing. It was constantly proving yourself. The show turned every driver into a symbol, a brand, a storyline, a headline waiting to happen. And AZN, with his quick wit and fearless hustle, had to fight to make sure he wasn't overshadowed by cars louder, faster, or more expensive than his own. Every season meant new faces, new competitors, new expectations. He wasn't just racing other people. He was racing time, evolution, and the weight of being loved by millions of fans who expected greatness. And at times, that pressure got heavy. Long nights at the shop, trying to stretch a budget. Trying to make old builds compete with monster engines. Trying to keep the farm truck and AZN brand alive while still staying true to their roots. Trying to maintain a show schedule that rarely allowed rest. There were episodes where he smiled on camera, and crashed on the couch afterward from sheer exhaustion. There were races where he stood joking at the starting line, while silently wondering if he'd disappoint the fans who believed in him. But if there's one thing AZN never let break, it was his spirit. Every struggle only sharpened him. Every setback only made him hungrier. And every day, he remembered why he started this journey in the first place. To honor his father. To make his mother proud. To keep the dream alive, no matter how steep the road got. This was the AZN the world didn't always see. The fighter. The survivor. The man who kept going even when the cameras weren't rolling. And this chapter of his life would set the stage for some of the biggest changes yet to come. Every racer reaches a crossroads, a moment where the old ways stop working, and evolution becomes the only path forward. For AZN, that moment didn't come with fireworks. It came quietly, during late nights in the shop, surrounded by tools, metal, and the smell of gasoline. The world around him was changing. New technology. New engines. New competition. And with every new episode of Street Outlaws, the races grew faster and more unforgiving. AZN knew that if he wanted to stay in the game, he couldn't rely on what had worked in the past. He had to rebuild, not just the cars, but himself. It started with ideas scribbled on notebook paper, sketches, numbers, dreams. Small at first. Then bigger. Then unstoppable. Because AZN wasn't just a racer, he was a creator. He didn't want to simply buy horsepower, he wanted to craft it, shape it, sculpt it into machines that felt like extensions of his own hands and heart. Every bolt he tightened, every weld he perfected, every new build he dreamed up, all of it carried pieces of his past, his passion, and his father's legacy. This wasn't work. This was therapy. This was healing. The dung beetle evolved. The small tire projects expanded. Concept builds turned into fan favorites. Farm Truck and AZN's lineup grew with machines that blended creativity with chaos, cars that didn't just compete, but told stories. Stories of risk. Stories of reinvention. Stories of starting again. And with every new creation, AZN rediscovered a version of himself he thought he had lost in the noise of fame and pressure. He became sharper. More disciplined. More determined to prove that you don't need $1 million race program to leave a mark, you just need heart, ingenuity, and a willingness to fail forward. As the show entered new eras, new cities, and new challenges, AZN stepped forward not just as a driver, but as a builder ready to evolve with the sport. He wasn't chasing others anymore. He was chasing the next version of himself. The transformation wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was powerful. Slowly, piece by piece, AZN built a future, one he could control, one he could grow into, one that honored everything he had endured to reach this point. And just when it seemed like he had found steady ground, life delivered a twist that would change everything once again. As the racing world evolved, something remarkable began happening behind the scenes. Farm Truck and AZN were no longer just two racers from Oklahoma. They were becoming an institution, a culture, an unmistakable presence in automotive entertainment. Long before the fame, they were two friends wrenching on tired engines, dreaming of making it big. But now, the dream had grown larger than either of them ever imagined. What started as playful experiments, an old truck, wild ideas, the dung beetle, had transformed into a full-scale operation. They weren't just participating in the racing scene anymore. They were shaping it. Merchandise, YouTube content, spin-off episodes, special appearances, national tours, workshops and fans lining up just to meet them. And through it all, AZN remained the same humble, hard-working soul he had always been, even when the spotlight grew blindingly bright. Inside their garage, tools weren't just tools, they were instruments of storytelling. Every car they built carried personality, a bit of humor, a bit of chaos, a bit of brilliance. Their garage became a place where imagination had no limits. Where a junkyard body could become a legend. Where the underdog always had a chance. This wasn't just racing entertainment, it was art, wrapped in exhaust fumes and adrenaline. And at the center of this creative storm was AZN, crafting ideas faster than the cameras could capture them. As their bond strengthened and their work evolved, so did their reach. New projects. New builds. New opportunities. AZN realized that the world no longer saw him as just a racer. He was a creator. A storyteller. A symbol of what's possible when passion and persistence collide. And this new era wasn't just growth, it was preparation. Because life was about to push him into a chapter that demanded even more resilience, more courage, and more heart than ever before. It's easy to admire the wins. The races. The jokes. The wild builds. The roaring engines. But AZN's true legacy was never about horsepower, it was about the message buried inside every mile he raced. From the kid who grew up grieving, rebuilding his life piece by piece, to the man who stood in front of millions, still humble, still grounded. AZN became living proof that no starting point has to be permanent. He didn't come from wealth. He didn't inherit a race program. He didn't step into fame with a silver spoon. He built everything, with his bare hands and relentless belief. That's what made him unforgettable. Fans didn't just admire him. They connected with him. The people who felt unseen. The ones who lost a parent. The dreamers without resources. The kids who felt like they didn't fit in. The mechanics working night shifts hoping for a break. The underdogs who never had a voice. AZN became their symbol, the voice for everyone who kept fighting silently. His story whispered a simple truth. If I can make it, so can you. And even now, his journey is far from over. With every new build, every episode, every burnout, every laugh shared with Farm Truck, every mile traveled, AZN continues writing a legacy that isn't just about racing, it's about rising. A story that future racers will look back on and say, that's the man who proved heart can outrun horsepower. If there is one constant in AZN's journey, it's the unshakable bond he shares with Farm Truck. They met long before the cameras, long before the fame, long before anyone imagined an old square body truck and a joking daredevil could dominate TV. Their connection wasn't built on racing alone. It was built on trust. On struggle. On shared dreams hammered together in dimly lit garages and parking lots where ideas were born out of nothing but passion. Farm truck brought wisdom, years of racing, experience, and an instinct for reading the street like a map etched into his soul. AZN brought energy, quick reflexes, creativity, the ability to turn even failure into comedy, and the determination to go again. Together, they created something neither could have built alone. Their relationship survived near misses, destroyed engines, sleepless nights, and the crushing pressure of national television. When one stumbled, the other stood taller. And in a world where partnerships often fade under fame, theirs only grew stronger. Because at the end of every race, every episode, every victory, and every heartbreak, they were still just two friends who loved building crazy cars and making each other laugh. This wasn't friendship. It was family. A brotherhood that powered them through every era of their lives. As the years passed, AZN realized something powerful: kids weren't just watching him race. They were learning from him. In every fan meet, every garage visit, every moment with young racers and aspiring builders, he saw reflections of himself. The shy kid. The underdog. The dreamer desperate for a chance. And AZN wanted to be the mentor he never had. Unlike many racers who guard their secrets like treasure, AZN opened his garage, and his mind, completely. He taught young builders how to weld, not just how to win. He explained failures as passionately as he explained victories. He encouraged creativity, not conformity. He pushed them to build from the heart, not from a catalog. His message remained the same. Don't wait for someone to pick you. Pick yourself. To AZN, teaching wasn't about horsepower. It was about grit. He taught kids to embrace mistakes, because every broken part carried a lesson. He taught them to respect their craft, because shortcuts always cost more later. He taught them to honor the journey, not just the destination. And slowly, quietly, he planted seeds that would bloom into the next generation of innovators, kids who believed they could succeed because AZN showed them it was possible. Racing is unpredictable. Machines break. Shows end. Trends shift. And no one knows this better than AZN. But there's something unshakable about his vision, the belief that the future doesn't have to follow a script. He will build it with his own hands, just like he's built everything else. There are new cars in the works. New experiments in the shop. New adventures with farm truck waiting to unfold. And new chapters the world hasn't seen yet. He's exploring digital content. Expanding their brand. Taking on creative builds that break every rule in the book. Turning junkyard dreams into engineering masterpieces. Even after years on TV, years of racing, years of rebuilding himself, AZN is nowhere near finished. His future stretches wide open, just like the empty asphalt roads he grew up racing on. And he's driving toward it with the same fire he had as a kid clutching a steering wheel for the first time. This next era won't be defined by competition. It will be defined by creation. By reinvention. By showing the world that true racers never retire, they simply shift gears and keep going.